Well, in 1986, my son Mitchell died by suicide. He had a mental illness. 8 years prior to that, he had tried, and this was his fourth attempt. When he first tried to take his life, I knew nothing at all about mental illness, and I didn't know how to help him. So I spent 8 years going to therapists, psychologists, took classes, reading books, doing anything I could do, and my main objective was how I could help Mitchell to live. I learned a lot, but he still took his life. At that point, my daughter Kathy was an occupational therapist, but she was a rehab occupational therapist, and at that time she was considering switching to psych, and she did. Because we come from a graphic arts family, Kathy knew that if you make something look really nifty and graphically appealing, people would be more receptive to use it. And she was the kind of therapist that liked to use handouts to help people open up and then be more at ease to talk about themselves. So she had a bunch of handouts that had been photocopied for years, looked terrible, were just straight type. So she decided she needed to write a book. And she actually asked me in our graphic arts business if I would like to set it up for her. And I told her she couldn't afford me. And so I said, but I'd love to write it with you. And she said, I was going to ask you that, but I know how busy you are because I was running a business. And I said, no, I'd love to do that because I think that if there were some good handouts that Mitchell could have used, I think that he would have been at least able to open up and talk about some of his feelings, which he couldn't do. And I'm not sure he even understood himself everything that he was feeling. And Mitchell was in business, he was a businessman. And yet inside of himself, he just couldn't express himself. So I really thought that it would be very, very helpful. So we sat down and we started a company called Wellness Reproductions, and we wrote our book, and that was Life Management Skills. And since our objective was really not to make money, our objective was to help people, to help facilitators help their clients, because it's so easy for a facilitator to burn out with mentally ill clients. So we made them reproducible, and on the back of each we put explanations how the facilitator could use them. We spiral bound the books, used a nice heavy paper so that they could be used over and over, and all they had to do was make a copy. And we did our first book, and then we were done. And then we started getting requests from people, well, when's the second book coming out? So we continued to write books. In the meantime, we went to a conference because our book was nominated for the Benjamin Franklin Award, and we went to a conference of the American Booksellers Association. And I took a class, and I was sitting next to a lovely woman who were talking, chatting, and she says to me, I tell her about wellness, and she said, well, I work for Whole Person, and if you ever have any questions or anything I can do to help you, I'd be glad to, because they were in business before we started. So over the years, I would call her and say, Carlene, I need a contract. Somebody wants to write a book for us. And so she faxed me over a contract that I could use, or I don't know how to price something, so she did that. And we eventually carried each other's products. In 2001, we sold our company. We had many employees. I was very busy running that business and my husband's business, and I really had no time to write books, and that had become my passion. So that's when I decided to sell the company. Actually, on Mitchell's 45th birthday, the papers went through in honor of Mitchell. And at that point, we sold it to a company that, and worked with them for 6 years, and they eventually sold it to another company who really didn't care about mental illness. They cared about school products. So I was done writing with them, and Carlene heard about that, called me, or maybe she called me before that, and I was still working for the company. And she called me and said, you know, I heard you sold the business. Would you like to write books for my company? And I said, I can't because I'm still under contract. And she so wisely said to me, however, if you are ever not working for them, give me a call, which I did. And that was in 2007. And since then, at this moment, I have written over 50 books with Whole Person, and my goal is 100. Getting back to your original question, it helps me make sense of Mitchell's struggles and his death by helping facilitators help their clients with mental health issues.